Hello everyone, and welcome to the video presentation of Group 14. The subject of team presentation is a Matthew Ortega's Esco dilemma. Before I start, let me tell you little bit about my team members and what they are going to talk about. First of all, I will give you the background of Zara and the definition of Esco dilemma, and conclude with the relationship between the ethical dilemma and leadership. Then, Shi Xingjian will give us the leadership style. In the red part, Ge Jiali, Ye Ziwang, and Xu Ruiyang will be responsible for narrating the ethical dilemma of Zara, impactions and option, decision and limitation. At the end, Yan Xingyu will give advice to Ortega and give a summary of the presentation. We have a lot to cram into the next 20 minutes, so I'd better make a start. Ortega is the founder of Zara, a company established in Spain in 1975. Under his and his team's operation, Zara has become the world's largest clothing retailer. However, in 2017, a survey conducted by the International Market Foundation found that Zara's manufacturing plant caused harm to the surrounding environment and the residents' health. Before we understand the dilemma that Zara is facing, let's interpret what is ethical dilemma. Simply put, ethical dilemma is a choice facing a dilemma. Before explaining, we regard 1 and 2 as two options in the ethical dilemma. That is to say, when we face option 1 and 2, we must make a choice, but when you make option 1, you have to bear the responsibility and the consequences of not following the ethical dilemma of option 2, and the converse is also true. However, when a leader is faced with a difficult situation, he can often reflect his morality. The value of the leader are reflected in the ethical choice, so that morality has become one of the key factors to measure the strength of leadership. In addition, in the relationship between leadership and ethical dilemma, how the leader solves the problem or the way the leader solves the problem can also reflect the strength of his leadership. The leadership of a leader has become a restrictive factor in the ethical dilemma. In fact, under ideal case, all managers should be leaders and organizations need a manager and leaders to achieve the best result. Because leadership inevitably affects the process and the way the organization approaches its goal at all times. In the next part, team member Shi Xingjian will use a framework to measure the leadership style of Zara leaders. Let's look forward to the next part and welcome him.
Thank you, Yang Songtao. Black Mountain's Manirico Leadership Grid, developed by Mountains in the early 1960s, plots the relationship between the task-centered degree of a manager, leader, and her people-centered degree, and identifies 5 different combinations of two and the leadership style they produce. This model can help managers critically consider their own management, leadership style, and adjust it. The next part is the leadership style of Zara Ortega. By the description of his leader style in the media, we find that he wants to discuss with other team members when facing problems. He often entrusts some work to employees, and he is good at listening to other suggestions and making changes. In some situations where work needs to be discussed, Ortega prefers group members to communicate verbally rather than written language. Ortega is a founder of Zara, but his leadership style affects the company culture, and the company's leadership and management style is developed on this basis. The spirit of Ortega is immortal. Ortega belongs to the leadership style of team management, and he prefers to use loyal people to do some important work. For him, the common interest is important for building the trust and respect among employees. In addition, he paid more attention to meet the basic needs of employees according to their own commitment. In terms of the application of this grade, we could find that leaders can see their own leadership style clearly to make some changes, and experts could make some comparison by one uniform standard. But we must admit that this grade cannot apply on every industry, and there might be some wrong advice because of the lack of subjective judgment. According to this company situation, the leader works with work reflects the leadership style, and then reflects the decision-making style which could affect the Zara choices. When facing moral dilemmas, next, my team member Ghazali will introduce the normal dilemmas of Zara.
Thanks for Xinjian's presentation, and my name is Jia Li. According to previous analysis, there is a relationship between ethic dilemma and leadership. In this case, Zara's ethic dilemma is caused by a material named viscose. Zara's brand positioning is selling fashionable clothing that people can afford. This has been maintained since the founder, Amancio Ortega. Zara responds faster reaction to the market and implements a fast fashion marketing strategy. The low price and the faster update can be seen the two main characteristics of the Zara. First, I will talk about the low price. In order to highlight its market positioning, Zara insists on the marketing strategy of selling to consumers at low prices, which will transfer huge pressure to the manufacturers and force them to reduce the cost. Viscose is a kind of cheaper and more durable material, which is often considered a sustainable alternative to cotton and polyester. Although viscose itself does not harm human health and environment, the chemical used in the manufacturing process may be highly toxic and have a negative impact on the health of workers. The second part is fast updates. In order to meet consumers' demand for cheap and trending clothing, the fast fashion brands such as Zara need to capture fashion information and launch popular apparel in a timely manner. Efficient operation mode also puts forward higher requirements on the supply chain system. And viscose production is highly concentrated. As shown in the figure, about 2/3 of the world's viscose is produced in China. The similarity of these main countries is that environmental regulations for viscose production are not sound. In order to meet the requirements of the high-speed production model, manufacturers are bound to sacrifice the environment to save time and cost. The investigation conducted by CMF found that manufacturers pose untreated wastewater directly into the local water resources, and the resulting heavy pollution poses a serious threat to the health of local residents. Therefore, we can conclude that the two characteristics of low price and fast updates are not only the main competitive advantage of the fast fashion brand Zara, but also the main reasons for local pollution and human health damage. While Zara continue to use viscose has become an ethical dilemma. Next, Zwan will talk about the impacts of viscose on the Zara and the environment.
Thanks for Jali's presentation, and I'm going to describe the impacts and options of Zara. Viscose is cheaper and more durable than many common clothing materials, so Zara uses it as a material to improve margins and qualities. As you can see from this chart, Zara's sales have grown rapidly since 2013. The increased use of viscose is closely related to the increase in sales, but Zara will face opposition because the environmental and employee health risks associated with viscose. Next, I will talk about the effect that produce viscose. The production of viscose has a great impact on the environment and society. On the environment, firstly, the discharge of pollutants will pollute the environment and even do harm to the health of residents. Secondly, producing viscose requires cutting down trees, which may well cause great damage to the forest. As for society, according to research, viscose workers are more likely to get sick than the general population, because the viscose production of harmful gas will be absorbed by workers. Then, Zara will currently faces two different options. Option 1 is to continue using viscose. On the contrary, option 2 is to give up using viscose. Two different choices have different consequences. If Zara chose option 1, they can reduce production costs and increase the speed of Zara's production. But because of the damage to the environment, social support has declined. If Zara chose option 2, public opinions is bound to side with them. However, Zara may lose its competitive due to increased costs. It's a diploma for Zara. Either option is difficult to choose. Will Zara continue to use viscose or give it up or do something else? Ruiyang will talk about Zara's final decision and consequences.
Thank you, Ziwang, for your introduction. Next, I will describe what Zara has done and the results. Zara made a decision on the viscose issue at its July 2019 shareholder meeting. They believe that the company's current development is still dependent on the use of the viscose. So, they decided to continue to use the viscose, but they will start to review the protection process to reduce the environmental pollution. In 2020, Zara has already provided training on environmental protection for designers to strengthen their environmental-friendly development, and also work to reduce waste emission in viscose production. In addition, Zara is committed to use 100% sustainable cellulose for viscose production by 2023, which will significantly improve the use time of the viscose and reduce resources consumption. By 2025, the companies will replace viscose entirely with 100% sustainable cotton and other renewable energy sources. This will ensure that Zara does not use viscose at all. As for the outcome of this decision, we believe that it has a possible effect. Zara has invested money to develop renewable material. Also, Zara's commitment will be recognized by the mass media because it can reflect the company's active commitment to social responsibility, thus playing a possible role in promoting the Zara brand and getting more profits. However, there are limitations in this decision. Zara will continue to use the viscose until it can find a replacement material. So, factory conditions may not improve anytime and employee health risks remain. Therefore, we recommend that Zara negotiate with the viscose manufacturers to optimize the viscose production environment, such as improving ventilation, giving regular health checks to each employee. In general, although Zara has solved the ethical dilemma this time. There is no guarantee that Zara will succeed next time out of its ethical dilemma. Then, Xinyu will put forward suggestions to improve the model level of this company, so that company can get rid of the ethical dilemma as soon as possible.
Thank you, Ryan. When an organization is faced with the moral dilemmas, leaders usually play an important role in the company, so the impact of decision making and the extent of the victorious and failures are greater than those of non-leaders. Therefore, it is particularly important to improve the moral standard of business leaders. The sort of behavior of leaders is the most important factor that affects the moral behavior in the organization. The moral concept of leader will directly affect the moral standard of enterprises. According to the Hayes, when an enterprise is faced with a moral dilemma, the leader can help his followers, that is, other employees, to face the value of the conflict, thus making change in the conflict. It can be seen that when the enterprise is getting rid of the moral dilemma, it is not enough to rely on the leader's own efforts. Every employee of the enterprise should have enough moral values. So adding the moral value to the value of the enterprise is very important too, and the employees will measure their behavior according to the standard of organizational culture, so as to improve the moral standards within the whole enterprise. Of course, the establishment of high standard moral indicators also requires the establishment of corresponding reward and punishment system. Everyone's moral standards are different and not such clearly, so it is very necessary to have clear moral regulation and draw a clear line, whatever who they are, as long as someone violated the relevant moral bottom line, who should get the same punishment. So in conclusion, in this case, for the sake of interest, the leader of Zara chosen a kind of cheap material which is viscose at the beginning, but Zara ignored the environmental problems. So the problem is, if Zara want to get interest, Zara have to ignore the environment. But if Zara pay attention to the environment, which will reduce the interest. The leader of Zara seemed to be stuck in a moral dilemma, but in fact, paying attention to the environment will not reduce the interest. The sustainable development of the enterprise will bring the long-term benefits. When the leader of Zara noticed the problem of viscose, he quickly worked out the corresponding plan, because only when the moral culture of an enterprise goes deep into the heart of every employee, the moral dilemma is not a big challenge for the company. So in today's enterprise management, only managers with high standards of leadership who can really lead the enterprise to the further future. Any questions? Okay, that's the end of presentation. Thanks for your attention.